She steered into her drive over in Avalon Park at 1:42 in the morning, still decked out in her full blues with the star gleaming on her shirt. A quartet of masked individuals exited a vehicle with their firearms drawn and ready to shoot. They did not pause. Ariana shot back. Her rounds missed the mark, but theirs struck her 2 separate times. One bullet to the face, another to the neck. As life left her, one suspect stripped the service pistol right off her person. Afterward, they simply fled the scene. But then came the critical error that blew the entire investigation wide open. One suspect lacked the discipline to stay silent and boasted to a buddy the following day, referring to the killing as his handiwork. That acquaintance immediately tipped off the authorities. This line of work was not some random stumble for Ariana. She chose this path with clear intent. Born of the South Side, built on a rock-solid family base. Her folks did a lot more than just feed and clothe those children. They actively molded their characters. Order was never something imposed unwillingly upon Ariana or her kin. It was a trait they were taught to cherish: grit, meaning, and an unmistakable internal compass. The younger kids did not merely cohabit the space with her. They observed her every move, studied her ways, and walked in her footsteps. To Ariana, regulations were never about holding people back. They acted as the scaffolding for constructing a life that was sturdy and enduring. She attended Illinois State University as a criminal justice student. She was laser focused from the very first moment on campus. There was no changing lanes or doubting the mission. She understood her desires and remained on that trajectory right up until she tossed her cap. Many folks reach that milestone and decide to pause, see the world, unwind, or contemplate their future. Ariana was not built that way. Without missing a beat, she signed up for the graduate curriculum at Loyola University Chicago. While hitting the books, she was simultaneously punching the clock as a full-time officer for the CPD. Honestly, those are 2 massive obligations that the average person struggles to handle individually. She was balancing both heavy loads simultaneously. The squad in the 5th District understood precisely what kind of woman she was. Dependable, understated, never chasing glory, simply steady as a rock. She arrived, handled business, and treated the job with gravity. That shield on her chest was never a vanity project. It was not an act, it was a duty. Plus, working those graveyard hours really flips your entire existence on its head. You are catching shut-eye during daylight and grinding while the town slumbers. Moments with loved ones are sliced from the slivers of time between fatigue and obligation. Yet Ariana managed it all. She filed police paperwork between homework tasks, studied during lunch, and crafted a thesis while the city navigated its bleakest time. When May rolled around, she was not merely getting close to the finish line. She was standing on the doorstep 72 hours out, with classes done, prerequisites met, and the commencement date set in stone. She had already shared a picture on the gram, rocking the regalia with a beaming grin, looking prepared for the next chapter. Tomorrow was not a concept for Ariana Preston. It was booked, verified, and imminent. As Ariana was finishing her tour of duty that evening, 4 young males were concluding a very different kind of activity. It was a theft rampage involving Jalen Frazier, 16 years old, Jaquan Buchanan, 18, Joseph Brooks, 18, and Traval Breland, 19. They had been navigating the South Side for quite some time, gathering steam. A single heist fed directly into the subsequent one. Every score made the following attempt seem simpler and less risky, as if they were completely invincible. Near the witching hour, they zeroed in on a female near 46th and Ellis. It was 4 versus 1. The crew approached her and snatched her mobile device, plastic, clothing, accessories, and bag. She offered 0 pushback. The sheer odds were sufficient to silence her. Physical force was unnecessary when the implication of harm was so clear. 40 minutes afterward, they eyed a red Kia Forte idling near 47th and Indiana. The motor was humming with the cabin empty. Forced entry was not required. They simply hopped in and drove off. From that moment forward, that hot whip served as their chariot for every event that transpired that evening. At 1:07 in the morning, the red Kia rolled up to a residence at 100th and Wallace. A trio of suspects bailed out, pushed 2 victims onto the pavement, snatched a designer purse and a mobile, and then split. 23 minutes later, a gentleman attempting to park his Tesla near 91st and Merrill became the next target. They robbed him of his communication device and keys, leaving him there with nothing. That made 4 stick-ups in 90 minutes flat. This was not about survival. These were not individuals trapped in a hopeless situation with zero alternative. It was about the rush, the excitement, and the show. Every felony fueled the subsequent one, removing the hesitation for the next act. Yet they remained hungry for more. The stolen red Kia cruised into Avalon Park shortly after 1:40 a.m. The streets were silent, illuminated only by dim porch bulbs, with absolutely no movement until they locked eyes on her. Just a solitary female crossing her own yard, still wearing her blues, the metallic shield glinting under the street lamp, but they failed to recognize a cop clocking out. They missed the fact that she was merely 3 days out from earning her graduate degree. They ignored the reality of a beloved daughter and sister who had dedicated years to crafting a meaningful life, seeing only prey at 1:42 a.m. It was May 6th, duty fulfilled and job finished, yet she remained in full gear since patrol work rarely concludes with any fanfare. You take that final dispatch, sign off the air, and head to your driveway. Her block in Avalon Park appeared exactly as it always did. Peaceful, suburban, and known. There were 0 red flags, no shouting matches, no brawls were erupting nearby, and no clear hazards stood out, only a patch of grass and the pavement. Just the mundane routine of returning from a job until a car rolled up, not drifting or cruising, but moving with purpose. The doors flew open, and 4 individuals stepped out nearly in unison. Dressed in dark gear with masks on and guns drawn, this was neither an argument turned sour nor a conversation gone bad. It was an ambush by design. Ariana had no moment to process the scene, so her drilling kicked in and reflexes bypassed logic. She executed exactly what the academy taught, what her drills instilled, and what her oath mandated for such a crisis. She returned fire. Detectives would later find the brass from her department pistol strewn about the grass. Proof she refused to lock up or give in, rejecting the assault without a fight as shots ripped through the neighborhood's calm seconds later. It wasn't a long siege or a negotiation, just instant and focused brutality that caught her in the neck and face. Amid the confusion, an assailant snatched the gun right off her, and the crew bolted instantly, piling back into their ride. The clash ceased as abruptly as it started, abandoning silent bloodshed and turning a safe haven into a marked forensic zone. Ariana remained injured right there on her property, fully dressed for duty with her shield clearly visible. A fellow Chicago cop answering a different dispatch in the vicinity stumbled upon her. He knew right away the casualty was a colleague who had followed protocol to the letter, yet it failed to spare her, leading to a grimly organized aftermath. The weight of it was immense as paramedics pulled up and patrol units flooded the area. Switching from operational mode to shared mourning occurred in a heartbeat, wrecking every soul on site. They rushed her to the trauma center, flanked by those who truly grasped the weight of the badge she wore. These were folks who knew the job's risks intimately, having worked the same graveyards, yet despite all efforts, Ariana Preston succumbed to her wounds. She was only 24, and instead of shielding her, that star on her chest had painted a target. While the city stirred, the probe kicked into gear because Chicago never ignores such brutality, especially not on quiet streets, not when a cop is down, and certainly not when the act is so brazen. Investigators began building the timeline backward, moment by moment and decision by decision, while gathering security tape. City cameras tracked the traffic and timing, while mobile records started exposing the network of who stood where and with whom. Lab techs matched the firearms to the brass found lying on the ground. Genetic markers tied suspects to abandoned objects, dismantling what initially seemed like a faceless, lightning-fast assault. A crimson Kia Forte, boosted earlier that evening, turned out to be the key piece of the puzzle. That car had served as their transport for a rash of offenses leading up to the murder. Later, they torched the ride, hoping to destroy proof, but the arson only raised further suspicion. In other cars tied to the crew, police found bank cards from mugging targets, linking separate felonies into a single chain of events. It wasn't a solitary mistake, but a series of them, and then the critical lead surfaced. It didn't stem from questioning or police heat, but from pure hubris when Jalen Frazier, the Cruz Jr., opened up to a pal. Rather than staying silent, he bragged, displaying ego instead of guilt as he recounted the evening's specifics. He explained their robbery spree, stumbling upon a solitary female, and how she started shooting. He detailed how his partner returned fire and ended her life, referring to it as his handiwork, but his buddy wasn't impressed. The confidant reached out to the cops right away, and that one chat put the whole gang at the location. It proved they meant to do it and fit seamlessly with the forensic data they had gathered. Hunches turned into hard facts, not because of a grill session, but because of vanity, leading to swift apprehensions. This is the chronology the detectives assembled, starting at 11:57 p.m. A woman got held up near 46th and Ellis by a crew of 4 guys jumping out of a white Dodge Avenger, stealing her wristlet, belt, phone, and cards in a total wipeout at 12:39 a.m. Around 10:07 a.m., a red Kia Forte sitting at 47th and Indiana got snatched, and that same ride later pulled up to a house over on 100th and Wallace. 3 guys hopped out, forced 2 folks down on the pavement, and grabbed a Coach purse along with a cell phone right around 1:30 in the morning. Someone parking a Tesla near 91st and Merrill got jacked by thieves who took his mobile device and the car key at 1:42 a.m. ShotSpotter sensors picked up 9 rounds being fired at 8,157 South Blackstone, but officers didn't roll out instantly because the district was backlogged. At 1:51 a.m., dispatch received multiple calls about a red Kia engulfed in flames in an alleyway close to 72nd and Eberhart. Then at 2:02 a.m., a 911 ping came in from the exact same spot where the ShotSpotter alert had triggered 20 minutes prior. It didn't come from a neighbor, but from Officer Preston's Apple Watch, which sent an automated distress signal to dispatch at 2:15 a.m. A cop responding to a different call found her, skipped the ambulance, loaded her into his cruiser, and raced straight to the University of Chicago hospital. She had taken 1 bullet to the face and another in the neck, with shell casings found at the scene confirming that 2 separate firearms were used. One of those weapons belonged to Ariana. That very same night, prosecutors allege one suspect bragged to a buddy about the robberies and shooting Officer Preston, and that friend called the cops right away. Jump ahead to Sunday night, where police were staking out a house at 76th and Bishop when they spotted Jaquan Buchanan hopping into an Uber. Units swarmed the car and took Buchanan into custody, along with his ex-girlfriend who happened to be riding with him. During the takedown, Buchanan started yelling at the top of his lungs to tip off the other guys hiding inside the nearby house. After a long standoff with the SWAT team, the rest of the crew surrendered and were hauled off to jail. A pistol found in the back of that Uber was linked to Officer Preston's murder, but her service weapon was still gone since one suspect claimed they sold it. All 4 suspects were booked and slapped with first-degree murder charges, plus additional counts related to armed violence, as well as robbery and grand theft auto. 4 individuals are now facing first-degree murder charges for the fatal shooting of Chicago police officer Ariana Preston. Authorities state the crew was on a violent crime spree before they killed the officer, and Fox 32's Joni Lum is live at headquarters with the update. Hey there, Joni. Good evening, Sylvia. Detectives had to push through their own grief, noting that tips from the public were crucial in catching the crew that targeted solo women before ending Officer Preston's life. The suspects are all teenagers, including 19-year-old Traval Breland, 19-year-old Joseph Brooks, 18-year-old Jaquan Buchanan, and a 16-year-old male. Investigators say at least 2 of them opened fire on Officer Ariana Preston as she was getting home from her shift at 1:42 a.m. on Saturday. Police report the 4 were cruising in a stolen red Kia, actively hunting for victims to rob, and they allegedly pulled multiple jobs before ambushing Officer Preston. As Officer Preston arrived home after her shift early that Saturday morning, 4 assailants drove up on her in a stolen car. The group bailed out of the car fast and sprinted directly at Officer Preston with their guns drawn. One suspect took a shot at Officer Preston, and she immediately fired back. They kept shooting at her, then snatched her service weapon before the whole group jumped back in the stolen car and sped off. Her final arrest that night, and even the guy she handcuffed, broke down in tears when he heard the news about what happened to her. That really speaks volumes about the kind of person Officer Preston was Commander Pendar mentioned that these charges start the healing process for the force after losing such a star officer, though the grief may never fully fade. The officer's gun was taken during the attack, and it still hasn't been found. They torched the getaway car, and now those 4 suspects are heading to bond court, even the one who was just 16 years old. Frazier was charged as an adult, a move that reflects just how serious this crime was and the mountain of evidence stacked against him. Because he's a minor, he was held in a juvenile facility while the legal process started. But when they faced the judge, bond was denied for everyone. The courtroom was packed, wall to wall, not with chaos or noise, but with a heavy, silent presence. A massive crowd of Chicago police officers showed up, not to scare anyone, but to show they stood together. They stood shoulder to shoulder, supporting the family of their fallen sister, watching 4 teenagers face the fallout of split-second choices that will now be measured in lifetime sentences. There was no yelling or outbursts, just the crushing reality of the tragedy settling on every person in the room. 4 young lives are now forever tied to the one life they chose to extinguish. For Ariana's family, this wasn't just court procedure, it was about the hole left in their lives, with her dad calling for justice and accountability rather than revenge. Her mother stood there, dignified and strong, making her stance absolutely clear. She wasn't demanding life sentences out of malice, but from a conviction that such a heavy loss required a penalty that couldn't be taken lightly. She spoke about her daughter not just as a police officer, but as a human being. But like I said in the courtroom today, the people I honestly felt sorry for were those young men. I pitied them because it was obvious that nobody had ever poured anything good into their lives. Nobody ever told them they were loved. No one ever told them they could achieve greatness, a lesson I constantly preached to my daughter, who was 24 with a criminal justice background. She was set to graduate May 13th from Loyola because education is the gospel we preach in our house. During the proceedings, it came out that 16-year-old Jalen Frazier had actually bragged to a friend that the shooting was his doing. He opened fire on her, and after Preston returned shots, he and the others gunned her down. As crazy as it might sound, I really do pray for their families. I honestly do. How can a human being shoot someone and then call it work? But we are going to get through this nightmare. Ariana is going to get her justice, and you all better get used to seeing my face around here. You will see a whole lot of me because I'm a praying mother with a beautiful daughter who deserves nothing less than justice. She was the one supposed to be in that courtroom, but now here I am, standing in her place. When asked what justice would look like for her daughter's murder, Moon stated clearly, a life sentence, that is the only justice for us. She was a young woman who was supposed to finish her education, build a career, and step into a future she had already carefully mapped out. She prayed not only for her own family, but for the troubled youth whose bad choices brought everyone to this point, her voice heavy with grief. It was pain, but not hysteria or performance. It was the kind of deep-rooted sorrow that stays with you. The tragedy hung in the air, not just captured in a memorial, but felt as the entire city of Chicago mourned together. The funeral for Ariana drew fellow officers, city leaders, and community members who had never met her but understood the weight of the loss. Good morning, everyone. My name is Commander Tyrone Pendarvis of the 5th District. I had the distinct honor of supervising a true blessing of a person named Ariana Preston. When I spoke with her mother, one of her main concerns through her grief was that she never thought Ariana could be the police. She saw her as so small and quiet that she couldn't imagine it. And I had to ask, are we talking about the same person? The person I knew was bursting with energy and absolutely full of life. I could tell you many stories, but one sticks out from when I first arrived at the 5th District and was given this blessing. She wouldn't let me walk by without speaking. She introduced herself and said, I want you to know this name and this face because that is who I am. It caught me off guard because, hey, I am the commander, but she put me right in my place. She let me know that I was just a commander, but she was Ariana. And I tried to tell Miss Moon that we truly loved her daughter. In fact, I want the 5th District to rise up, stand up, and show her exactly how much we loved her. Everybody in 5 stand up. Everyone standing here is from the 5th District, and we absolutely loved your daughter. There is nobody in my district who wasn't affected or who couldn't tell you a story about her From Christmas parties to casual gatherings, we loved your daughter. I just want to leave you with the fact that she was never alone with us. We looked out for her. We look out for every one of my guys, and we look out for each other because we are a family. That is all I wanted to say. Thank you. The streets were packed with people in uniforms filling every available space, the silence saying more than words ever could. In the weeks and months that followed, Chicago refused to let her memory fade, renaming a section of her Avalon Park neighborhood Ariana M. They named it Preston Way, anchoring her memory to the exact location where she had been attacked. That street sign became a statement that her presence still mattered and that the city acknowledged the loss. At Loyola University Chicago, where she had been just 72 hours from completing her master's degree, a memorial scholarship was established. The education she never got to finish would now assist others pursuing careers in law, justice, and public service. Through the Peace for Preston Foundation, her family transformed their grief into action, offering mentorship and education designed to protect futures rather than simply mourn them. In that way, her legacy became something active and living that continued to contribute even after her death. But while the memorial stood, the case remained active. In January 2026, the legal process continued inside the Cook County courtroom. Pre-trial hearings resumed for the 4 men charged in Ariana Preston's murder. The judges weighed the motions, ruled on the evidence, and set the ground rules for how the trial would unfold. A major decision allowed a firearms specialist to take the stand, giving the state a solid link between the ballistics and the shooting. The youngest suspect, only 16 when it happened, faced adult charges but was held in a juvenile facility. This was strictly due to his age. The defense fought to toss out statements given to police, and while no trial date was set, the legal gears kept grinding forward. There is no verdict or closure yet, just the slow march of justice years after a life was stolen in seconds. Still, no legacy can ever bring someone back. Even if full justice is served, it cannot put her back in her chair at the family dinner table. It is never going to undo that tragic night or wipe away the memory of police tape surrounding her front yard. Nothing brings back the decades she deserved, the professional path she was forging, or the legal career she was destined for. Not a single memory returns. The truth is the only thing left standing, and it is clear that Ariana Preston was not killed due to negligence. She was not taken because she took foolish chances, nor did she lose her life due to some personal failure. She was murdered simply because she was dedicated, working hard every single night to build a dream right up until the end. We drop fresh true crime videos every day, diving into famous cases and the ones flying under the radar. Stay tuned as we share more stories that need to be told. Catch you all in the next video. I am just so incredibly grateful that she got the chance to shine her bright light on everyone around her. It hurts knowing I will not be there to watch her walk down the aisle, raise a family, or purchase her very own home. Prosecutors have slapped 4 individuals with first-degree murder counts following the slaying of Chicago cop Ariana Preston. Her watch had officially concluded right at the stroke of 12. Ariana Preston punched out for the night, hopped into her vehicle, and began navigating the familiar streets of the South Side toward her place. It was a path she had driven countless times without incident. Just 24 years of age, she had 3 years on the beat and was deep into her second year of grad school at Loyola. In merely 72 hours, she was set to march across the podium and grab that diploma. 72 hours, Ariana Preston, 24 years old, 3 days from her master's degree. She never made it home alive. A life of purpose, dedication, and service ended in seconds by 4 choices made in the dark. Her mother stood in that courtroom with a grace that silenced the entire room. She grieved and still found compassion for those young men. She said no one had ever told them they were loved. No one ever told them they could be great. She called that the real tragedy underneath all of it. The investigation broke open not from technology alone, but because one person heard a boastful confession and immediately called the police. One honest call from one ordinary person put 4 suspects behind bars. Your voice at the right moment can change everything. If you witness something dangerous, call 911. If you hear something that does not sit right, report it. Staying silent has a cost. Speaking up saves lives. Support organizations that reach young people before they reach the point of no return. Mentor, volunteer, Invest in someone's future before it is too late. Tell the young people around you that they are loved. Tell them they can build something great. Those words spoken early enough carry more power than any courthouse. Chicago renamed a street in Avalon Park for Ariana. Loyola University created a scholarship in her name. Her family built the Peace for Preston Foundation. They turned grief into mentorship, into education, into futures protected, because Ariana never stopped building, even in death. She chose the South Side, the same streets she grew up on, as her beat. 3 years on the force, her whole life pointed forward. She was not killed because she made a mistake. She was not reckless. She was not careless. She was killed because she was doing everything right. The case is still moving through the courts. Justice is slow, but it is moving, and Ariana Preston will not be forgotten while it does. Her name is now a street, a scholarship, a foundation. She is still building the future, just from a different place. She was a full-time officer and a full-time graduate student, both at the same time. Most people can barely manage one. She had already posted her graduation photo online. Cap and gown, a wide smile. 72 hours stood between her and everything she had worked for. That night, she finished her midnight shift, still in her blues, her badge gleaming, and drove home through streets she had patrolled 100 times. 4 young men, ages 16 to 19, had spent that same night on a robbery spree, targeting strangers, hitting victim after victim. At 1:42 a.m., they pulled up in a stolen car. They saw a woman in a driveway. They did not pause. They moved with purpose. Ariana did not freeze. She drew her weapon and fought back, because that is exactly what her oath required. She was outnumbered 4-1. She was shot twice and did not survive. She was 36 hours from the weekend, 72 from her diploma.